The shrill sound of the auctioneer's voice echoed through the grand ballroom as Lucas Stone adjusted his custom navy suit, wondering how he had let his marketing team talk him into this charity auction. It was the social event of the year for New York's elite, but Lucas would have preferred reviewing quarterly reports in the solitude of his penthouse office. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, a mystery date package. A full evening with one of our volunteer bachelors or bachelorettes, identity revealed only after the winning bid. All proceeds go to building the new children's cancer ward. Shall we start the bidding at $5,000? Lucas sipped his champagne, observing the eager faces around him. As CEO of Stone Pharmaceuticals, one of the nation's leading medical research companies, he had attended countless charity events, but this one felt different. The company had recently launched a revolutionary cancer treatment, and supporting this particular cause seemed fitting. Plus, his sister Lee had been diagnosed with leukemia as a child, making the pediatric cancer ward a deeply personal cause. 10,000, called a woman in red from across the room. 15, countered another bidder. Lucas hadn't planned on participating in the auction. He was here to write a check, shake some hands, and slip out early. Dating had been low on his priority list since taking over the family business 5 years ago at 30. His days were filled with board meetings, research initiatives, and global expansion plans. 20,000, said another voice, and Lucas found himself growing curious about this mystery date that was generating such enthusiasm. The auctioneer beamed. 20,000. Do I hear 25? Something inexplicable came over Lucas at that moment. Perhaps it was the 2 glasses of champagne, or maybe the memory of his sister's battle with cancer, but he raised his hand and heard himself say, $50,000. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by silence. The auctioneer's eyes widened. 50,000 from Mr. Stone, going once, going twice. Sold? Lucas immediately questioned his impulsive decision as he made his way to the payment counter. He hadn't been on a date in over a year, and now he'd paid an exorbitant amount for one with a complete stranger. Congratulations, Mr. Stone, said the event coordinator, a petite woman with an iPad. Your mystery date will be revealed at the end of the auction. Please stay for the announcement. An hour later, as the auction concluded, the coordinator returned to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to reveal our mystery dates. She called up several winners, matching them with their dates amid applause and laughter. And finally, Mr. Lucas Stone, who generously bid $50,000 for our cancer ward. Lucas reluctantly walked to the stage, hands in his pockets. He nodded politely to the crowd, already calculating how to gracefully exit this commitment. Maybe a quick dinner and an early excuse about an international conference call. Mr. Stone, your mystery date is. The coordinator paused dramatically. Dr. Ruby Lawrence, head of pediatric oncology at Memorial Hospital, a woman with chestnut hair cut in a stylish bob, made her way through the crowd. She wore a simple but elegant midnight blue dress, and unlike many of the heavily made-up women in attendance, her face had a natural, fresh appearance. Her smile was warm but somewhat reserved. Lucas extended his hand as she joined him on stage. Dr. Lawrence, she shook it firmly. Mr. Stone. That was quite generous of you. A worthy cause, he replied, surprised by the immediate sense of comfort he felt in her presence. They stood awkwardly as photographers captured the moment, then made their way off stage. I should clarify something, Ruby said once they were away from the microphones. I didn't volunteer for this. The hospital board submitted my name without telling me. Apparently, I need to get out more. She made air quotes with her fingers. Lucas found himself smiling. That makes 2 of us who were ambushed. My marketing team insisted I attend tonight. Well, at least your 50,000 is going to good use, she said, a genuine smile lighting her face. That money will furnish an entire treatment room in the new ward. That's good to hear. Lucas found himself curious about this doctor who seemed as uncomfortable with the social pageantry as he was. So you're a pediatric oncologist? Yes, for the past 8 years, Ruby answered. And you run Stone Pharmaceuticals, correct? Your company developed the Neogen treatment that's showing promising results in our clinical trials. Lucas nodded, surprised and impressed she knew his company's work. We're hopeful about Neogen. The early results are encouraging. An awkward silence fell between them. About this date, Lucas began. We don't have to, Ruby said simultaneously. They both stopped, and Ruby laughed, a genuine sound that made Lucas smile again. You first, he offered. I was going to say we don't have to go through with the date if you'd rather not. I'm sure you're busy, and this was clearly for charity. Lucas considered her offer. The sensible choice would be to take the out she was providing, yet something made him hesitate. Actually, I'd like to honor my bid, he heard himself say. How does dinner next Friday sound? Unless you're on call. Ruby tilted her head slightly, studying him. I'm not on call. Friday works. They exchanged contact information, and as Lucas walked her to her car later that evening, he found himself looking forward to Friday with unexpected enthusiasm. Lucas arrived at per se 15 minutes early the following Friday. He'd chosen the restaurant for its excellent food and discreet service, where they wouldn't be interrupted for autographs or business discussions. He'd considered sending his driver for Ruby but decided against it, not wanting to seem presumptuous. She arrived precisely on time, wearing a simple emerald dress that complemented her eyes. Her hair was loose tonight, falling just above her shoulders. This place is beautiful, she said after they were seated at a corner table overlooking Central Park. Though I should warn you, I might identify all the bones in the fish they serve. Occupational hazard. Lucas laughed. As long as you don't mind if I discuss pharmaceutical binding agents. I've been told I do that on dates. So you've been on many dates recently? Ruby asked, then quickly added, sorry, that was personal. Doctors' curiosity were always taking histories. No need to apologize, and no, not many. The last one was. Lucas paused, calculating. About 14 months ago. A setup by my sister that ended with my date pitching her startup idea instead of having actual conversation. Ruby smiled sympathetically. My last date spent the entire evening talking about his marathon training, in 15-second increment splits. Their conversation flowed naturally from there, moving from awkward dating experiences to their careers, finding unexpected common ground. My sister was diagnosed with leukemia when she was 8, Lucas shared after their entrees arrived. That's actually what got me interested in pharmaceutical research. I wanted to develop better treatments with fewer side effects. Ruby's expression softened. How is she now? Healthy, married with twins, and constantly telling me to work less. Sound advice, Ruby said. I've had to learn that lesson the hard way. You can't help others if you burn out yourself. Is that what drew you to pediatric oncology, helping children? Ruby took a sip of her wine. Partly. I lost my best friend to brain cancer when we were 16. Sarah. She was brilliant, wanted to be an astrophysicist. After she died, I decided I would fight the disease that took her from the world. Lucas noticed how her voice softened when she mentioned her friend. That's admirable, turning grief into purpose. It doesn't always feel admirable when I'm on hour 20 of a shift, but the kids keep me going. Their resilience is incredible. She paused, looking slightly embarrassed. Sorry, I don't usually talk this much about myself. I'm glad you are, Lucas said sincerely. By the time dessert arrived, Lucas realized they'd been talking for nearly 3 hours. The restaurant had emptied considerably, but he felt no desire to end the evening. This has been. Ruby began searching for the right word. Unexpected, Lucas offered, in the best way, she agreed. Though I should probably get home. Early rounds tomorrow. Lucas signaled for the check. May I walk you home or call you a car? I'm just a few blocks away, actually. The walk would be nice. The April air was cool but pleasant as they strolled through the city. Lucas found himself walking slower than usual, wanting to extend their time together. This is me, Ruby said, stopping in front of an elegant pre-war building. Ruby, Lucas said, suddenly feeling like a teenager again. "I'd like to see you again, properly, not because of a charity auction." She smiled, her eyes bright in the glow of the street lamps. "I'd like that too." They stood there for a moment before Lucas leaned in slowly, giving her time to step away if she wished. Instead, Ruby moved closer, and their lips met in a gentle kiss that felt both new and somehow familiar. "I'll call you tomorrow," Lucas said when they parted. Ruby nodded, a slight flush on her cheeks. "Good night, Lucas." As he watched her enter her building, Lucas realized he hadn't checked his phone once during their entire evening of first in years. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of dates whenever they could align their demanding schedules. They discovered a shared love of classic films, debated the merits of various pizza toppings, and spent a rainy Sunday at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. 3 weeks after their first date, Lucas invited Ruby to his penthouse for dinner. He'd considered taking her to another restaurant, but wanted somewhere more private where they could talk without interruption. Despite having a personal chef on staff, Lucas insisted on cooking himself pasta carbonara, his grandmother's recipe. "You're full of surprises," Ruby said, watching him move confidently around the kitchen. "I half expected you'd have a personal chef hiding somewhere." "I do usually," Lucas admitted, grating fresh parmesan, "but I wanted to cook for you myself, though I can't guarantee it'll be as good as Antonio's. The fact that you're trying means more." Ruby sipped her wine, looking out at the spectacular view of the city. "This place is incredible. Very different from my cramped one-bedroom. It came with the job," Lucas said, stirring the pasta. "Sometimes it feels more like a hotel than a home. I'm rarely here except to sleep." Ruby walked around the spacious living area, stopping at a framed photo of a teenage Lucas with a young girl. "Is this your sister?" "Yes, that's Lee during her remission celebration. She had been cancer-free for 6 months. Ruby studied the photo. "You can see how much you love her. That's the look I hope to see on families' faces in my ward someday." Lucas plated the pasta and brought it to the table he'd set on the balcony. The spring evening was perfect, with the city lights beginning to twinkle below them. Over dinner, Ruby told him about a young patient who had finished his last round of chemotherapy that morning. "We have this bell they ring when they complete treatment. Today, when Max rang it, I swear I could have heard it from the street. He was so excited." Lucas loved how animated she became when talking about her patients. "You really care about them." "I try not to get too attached, but it's impossible not to," she admitted. "The hardest part is when the treatments don't work." "I can't imagine." Lucas reached across the table to take her hand. "The research we're doing now will hopefully mean fewer of those hard days for you in the future." Ruby squeezed his hand. "That's why what you do matters so much. Every breakthrough means more birthdays, more graduations, more lives." After dinner, they moved to the couch with dessert. Ruby curled her legs under her, looking comfortable in his space in a way no one else ever had. "Tell me something you've never told anyone else," she said, her voice soft. Lucas thought for a moment. "Sometimes I'm terrified I'm not good enough to run the company my father built. That one wrong decision could undo decades of work and affect countless patients." Ruby nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I have days when I question every medical decision I make, even routine ones. I think that fear is what makes us good at what we do. It keeps us careful, vigilant. What about you? Something you've never shared?" Ruby was quiet for so long Lucas thought she might not answer. "I almost quit medicine after my first patient died. He was 5, with the same cancer that took Sarah. I thought I was prepared because I'd already experienced loss, but it was completely different being the doctor who couldn't save someone." Lucas moved closer, putting his arm around her. "What made you stay?" His parents, actually. "At the funeral, his mother hugged me and thanked me for making his final months less painful. She said he'd talked about the doctor who didn't treat him like he was broken. That's when I realized that even when I can't cure, I can still heal in other ways." Lucas kissed her forehead gently. "You're remarkable, Ruby Lawrence." She looked up at him, vulnerability and warmth in her eyes. "So are you, Lucas Stone." When they kissed this time, it was different, deeper, filled with a connection that had been building since that night at the auction. Later, as Ruby lay sleeping in his arms, Lucas realized with startling clarity that he was falling in love with her. 2 months into their relationship, the challenges of their demanding careers began to surface. Ruby was called away during a weekend trip to the Hamptons when a patient took a turn for the worse. Lucas understood completely, driving her directly to the hospital and waiting with coffee when she emerged 12 hours later, exhausted but relieved the child had stabilized. The following week, Lucas had to fly to Switzerland for an emergency meeting with research partners when a clinical trial showed unexpected results. He called Ruby from the tarmac. "I'm so sorry about dinner tomorrow," he said, watching his team board the private jet. "Don't apologize," Ruby assured him. "This is important. The trial results could affect patients like mine. You're incredible, you know that. Most people would be upset. I'm a doctor, Lucas. I understand emergency meetings at 2 a.m. and canceled plans. Just come back safely." Lucas found himself smiling despite the stress of the situation. "I'll bring you Swiss chocolate to make up for it. Now you're speaking my language." When he returned 3 days later, Ruby was waiting at his apartment with takeout from his favorite Thai restaurant and a stack of medical journals. "I thought you might want to decompress before diving back into work," she explained. It was such a thoughtful gesture that Lucas nearly told her he loved her right then. But the words felt too important for a jet-lagged moment over pad thai, so he kissed her instead, hoping she could feel what he wasn't yet ready to say. As summer approached, they fell into a rhythm, carving out time together between their responsibilities. They started a tradition of Sunday morning walks in Central Park, followed by brunch at a small cafe Ruby had discovered. During one such walk, Ruby brought up the hospital's annual fundraising gala. "It's next month," she said as they strolled hand in hand. "I usually attend alone and leave early, but I was wondering if you'd like to come with me." "I'd be honored," Lucas replied, squeezing her hand. "Though I should warn you, I might get competitive during the auction portion. I have a history of overbidding at these events." Ruby laughed. "That's how we met, if you recall, though this time no mystery dates, just boring artwork and vacation packages." "Meeting you was worth every penny of that 50,000, Lucas said sincerely. Ruby stopped walking, a serious expression crossing her face. "Lucas, there's something I need to tell you," his heart stuttered momentarily. "What is it?" "The hospital board offered me a position heading a new pediatric oncology research initiative. It would mean more administrative work, but also the chance to integrate clinical practice with cutting-edge treatments more directly." "Ruby, that's incredible," Lucas said, genuinely thrilled for her. "You'd be perfect for it. There's more," she continued. "Part of the job would involve collaborating with pharmaceutical companies on pediatric trials." She took a deep breath. "Including Stone Pharmaceuticals." Lucas understood her concern immediately. "You're worried about a conflict of interest," Ruby nodded. "If we're together and I'm working with your company—" "It could look like favoritism," Lucas finished. "Have you discussed this with the board?" "Yes. They're aware of our relationship and have protocols in place for exactly this situation. All decisions would go through an independent review committee." She looked uncertain, "But I wanted to make sure you're comfortable with it before I accept." Lucas considered this carefully. "I think you should take the position if it's what you want. We can be transparent and professional. Your work is too important to pass up an opportunity like this." Relief washed over Ruby's face. "That's what I hoped you'd say. I'm going to accept it." Lucas pulled her into a hug. "I'm proud of you." As they continued their walk, Lucas realized their relationship had reached a new level of seriousness if they were discussing professional boundaries and future plans. The thought didn't frighten him as it might have months ago. The following weeks were busy for both of them. Ruby was transitioning into her new role while maintaining her patient load, and Lucas was preparing for a major company announcement about a breakthrough in their cancer research. Despite their hectic schedules, Lucas made time to visit a jeweler on Fifth Avenue. The emerald ring he selected reminded him of the dress Ruby had worn on their first date, with small diamonds surrounding the center stone like stars around a planet. He knew it was soon. They'd only been together for 4 months, but when he thought about his future, Ruby was always in it. The night of the hospital gala arrived, and Lucas arranged for a car to pick up Ruby. When she emerged from her building in a floor-length silver gown, her hair elegantly styled, Lucas momentarily forgot to breathe. "You look stunning," he said, helping her into the car. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she replied, straightening his bow tie. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, transformed for the evening with elegant lighting and floral arrangements. As a major donor and Ruby's date, Lucas found himself introduced to hospital board members, wealthy patrons, and Ruby's colleagues. "So you're the auction winner who swept our Ruby off her feet," said an older doctor with a knowing smile. "She's been glowing for months now." Ruby blushed. "Doctor Henderson, please." "It's true," the woman continued. "In 15 years, I've never seen you take a proper lunch break, and suddenly you're leaving on time and smiling in budget meetings." Lucas enjoyed seeing this side of Ruby's life, the respect her colleagues had for her, the way young residents approached her with admiring expressions. When it was time for the hospital's chief of medicine to announce the new pediatric oncology research initiative, Lucas felt a surge of pride watching Ruby take the stage. "Dr. Lawrence brings not only her exceptional medical expertise to this position," the chief said, "but also her unwavering compassion for her patients. Under her leadership, we expect this initiative to advance pediatric cancer treatment significantly." The applause was enthusiastic, and Ruby's speech was brief but powerful, focusing on the children who would benefit from the research. When she returned to Lucas's side, he whispered, "That was perfect." "I was terrified," she admitted quietly. "Public speaking isn't my forte." "Could have fooled me." As the evening progressed to the auction portion, Lucas found himself bidding generously on several items, including a painting by one of Ruby's young patients and a weekend getaway to Nantucket that he hoped they could enjoy together. After the auction concluded, Ruby introduced Lucas to a young boy in a wheelchair near the dessert table. "Lucas, this is Max, one of my star patients. Max, this is Lucas Stone." The boy, about 9 years old with a baseball cap covering what Lucas assumed was hair loss from treatment, looked up with bright eyes. "You make medicine, right?" Lucas knelt down to be at eye level with him. "My company does, yes, doctor." "Ruby says your new medicine might help kids like me someday." "We're working very hard to make sure it does," Lucas replied seriously. Max nodded. "Cool. Can I have another chocolate thing?" "Mom said to ask you first," he added, looking at Ruby. Ruby laughed. "One more, then it's time for you to head home. It's already past your bedtime, mister." As Max wheeled away toward his waiting mother, Ruby watched him with a mixture of affection and concern. "He's responding well to treatment, but cases like his are exactly why this research initiative matters so much." Lucas took her hand. "Would you like to step outside for some air? It's getting crowded in here." They made their way to a terrace overlooking the city. The June night was warm, the sky clear enough to see a few stars despite the city lights. "I've been thinking," Lucas said, leaning against the stone railing. "Always dangerous," Ruby teased. "The night we met, I almost didn't attend that auction." "And I tried to get out of being a mystery date," Ruby added. "Yet here we are." Lucas turned to face her fully. "I've always approached life methodically, strategic decisions, calculated risks. Meeting you was none of that. It was the most spontaneous thing I've done in years." Ruby's expression softened. "Lucas, let me finish," he said gently, taking her hands in his. "These past 4 months have shown me what I was missing by living that way. You've brought joy and purpose to parts of my life I didn't even realize were empty." He reached into his pocket and took out the emerald ring. Ruby's eyes widened as he dropped to one knee. "I know it hasn't been that long, but I've never been more certain of anything. I love you, Ruby Lawrence." Your compassion, your intelligence, your ability to find humor even on your hardest days. I want to build a life with you." He took a deep breath. "Will you marry me?" Tears glistened in Ruby's eyes. For a heart-stopping moment, Lucas wondered if he'd misread everything, if he'd moved too fast. Then she smiled, the same warm smile that had captivated him from the beginning. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and certainty he felt. When they finally parted, Ruby looked at the ring sparkling on her hand. "It's beautiful." "Like you," Lucas said, unable to stop smiling. "We can have a long engagement if you want. Take our time planning." Ruby shook her head. "I don't need time to be sure about us, Lucas. I've known since our first real date that you were different from anyone I've ever met. You understand my work, my passion for it. You support me without trying to change me." "That's how I feel about you," Lucas said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We're partners." They returned to the gala to share their news, receiving congratulations from Ruby's colleagues and promises to celebrate properly soon. By the time they left, it was nearly midnight, the city still vibrant with light and life. "Come home with me?" Lucas asked as they settled into the car. Ruby nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "Home sounds perfect." 1 year later, Lucas stood in the garden of his family's estate in Connecticut, watching as Ruby walked toward him in a simple but elegant white dress. They had chosen a small ceremony with only close family and friends, including several of Ruby's patients who were well enough to attend. Max, now in remission, served as ring bearer, proudly walking down the aisle without his wheelchair for the first time since starting treatment. As Ruby joined Lucas at the altar, he felt the same certainty he'd experienced the night he proposed. Their vows were personal and heartfelt, promising partnership, understanding, and unwavering support through whatever challenges life brought them. "I never expected to find my soulmate at a charity auction," Lucas said, causing their guests to laugh. "But sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places." Ruby's voice was steady as she made her promises to him. "You bid on a mystery that night, and I'm grateful every day that you did. I promise to continue surprising you, challenging you, and loving you for all our days." When they were pronounced husband and wife, the applause from their guests seemed to echo the joy Lucas felt as he kissed his bride. At the reception, Lucas's sister Lee, now 20 years cancer-free, gave a touching toast. "When Lucas paid $50,000 for a date with a stranger, I thought he'd finally lost his mind," she joked. "Now I know it was the wisest investment he's ever made." Later, as they danced under twinkling lights, Ruby leaned close to whisper something that made Lucas's heart soar even higher. "I have some news," she said, her eyes shining. "I wasn't going to tell you until after the honeymoon, but I can't wait. We're going to have a baby." Lucas stopped dancing, staring at her in wonder. "Really?" Ruby nodded, laughing at his expression. "Really? I found out 3 days ago you're going to be a father." Lucas pulled her close, overwhelmed with emotion. From an impulsive bid at a charity auction to this moment of perfect happiness, it was more than he could have ever imagined. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "Both of you." As they resumed their dance, surrounded by the people they loved and with a future bright with promise ahead of them, Lucas silently thanked whatever twist of fate had led him to that auction, to that impulsive bid to Ruby. In a life built on careful planning and strategic decisions, the most beautiful part had come from the one moment he'd acted purely from the heart.